and Barbecue. Hello and welcome to Boost, Booze, and Barbecue. This is Andy.
And this is Coy. How's it going, Andy?
Doing good, man. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Back again for another episode, finally.
The triumphant return of Coy and Masterson.
I don't know if it's triumphant. I am back, though.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you. We're glad to see you. It's always a good time when Coy can join in. What have you been up to recently?
I haven't been up to a whole lot. A lot of work. A lot of complaining about the weather. You know, just the normal, like, old guy stuff.
Yeah. I think the 50 to 55 hour work weeks were getting to both of us.
Yeah, that, and then combine that with some of the worst weather we've had this winter so far, for sure.
You know, you shouldn't talk about your kids that way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Weather and stormy, my children. Yeah.
It beats apple and blanket, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, don't get me started. You know, when you have everything and then you destroy your child's life by naming them something cool like Apple, I'm not sure where that comes from.
Well, you're living in Hollywood land, Celebrityville for a little bit too long. You know, there are famous stories about, like, Prince. They say that he would do these things, like he would find his assistant at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. Well, I mean, technically it'd be Sunday, but he'd just say, hey, I need a giraffe right now. And he just could not figure out why his assistant was not able to get him a giraffe that instant.
The fact that you would ask for that is amazing. Like, I feel like if I get rich, I'm just going to do that because it would be funny.
Kind of a why not thing.
Yeah, just maybe I figure, like, most of the time you're not going to get the giraffe, but 1 out of 50, they're going to somehow show up with it. And then you'll be like, oh, now I have a giraffe.
It's kind of like asking Santa Claus for a giraffe, and he says, no, I can't do that, be more realistic. And so you say, take this year's Dallas Cowboys to the Super Bowl, and he goes, fine, what color giraffe do you want?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly.
That's like a 1-to-1 comparison.
Yeah, I'll take a pink robot unicorn. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want it with a horn or no?
Yeah, I will have a large purple dragon.
No, you can't do that. Be more realistic.
I feel like purple dragon, large purple dragon, that sounds like a really good drink. Like, I'd like to walk in the bar, slam down, not like my wallet, but like a stack of gold coins, like, you know, Sacagawea dollars. Just be like, I'll have a large purple dragon.
I also feel like that's a good name for, like, one of those 80s electronic bands.
I feel like that'd be like it'd be like late 80s, like a video game console. Yeah, I was down at the arcade, top score on the purple dragon. Large purple dragon.
You know, this is why people listen to this show, right?
Yeah, for the hot purple dragon talk.
It's food for thought, knowledge for life.
It's on everybody's minds.
We're just saying it. Everybody else is thinking it.
Well, I'd like to wish all the listeners a Merry Christmas. And you. I mean, I know you have an okay Christmas. I don't know if I want to go full Merry for you, but like a medium Merry Christmas for you. But to all the listeners, Merry Christmas. And even though this episode's going to be dropping after Christmas, I think we're going to talk a little bit about what we wish we'd have gotten for Christmas.
Ooh, yes. Let's do it. You going to start?
Yeah, I can start. I think I'm going to start cheap here. I wish I had gotten a bottle of Captain Morgan Private Stock. It's cheap. It's my go-to for just a decent rum. And, you know, it's not fancy. I don't feel bad rounding it in soda or pouring it in coffee, you know, but it's still good. So that's kind of my go-to rum. And I would love to have a new bottle of that for Christmas because I've drank all the rest and I'm only have all the fancy rums that you've left at my house.
The ones that you don't want to cut with soda?
Yeah, it's the ones I don't want to cut, but, you know, I don't want to just sit there and drink straight rum after work a lot of times. Like, well, I have to work tomorrow. How many glasses of rum? Just pure rum? Should I put ice in it? Should I have kept this in the fridge? Like, there's a lot of questions. I'm not sure what the proper etiquette to treat this really fine rum is. And so it gets drank less than the cheaper stuff.
Right, because you're afraid of it. It's not as approachable as the cheap stuff.
I try to pour it in a cup, and it's a glass bottle. I can't squeeze it and get that glug move going on, you know? So I don't know how many glugs I've put in my coffee, and it's, sometimes too little, sometimes too much.
You sound like my mechanic, you know? Was that supposed to be torqued to 1 ugga-dugga or 2?
So, about that joke. A little side jag. I was at my dad's house, and my brother and one of his friends, they were putting some new brakes or something on he had like a 2006 Chevy pickup. And he looked up and said, what do you torque lug nuts down to? And I just looked at him. I said, 3 ugga-uggas. And he said, what? And I was like, the impact gun. It's in your hand. When it gets tight, it starts doing the ugga-ugga. Let off at 3. You're good. And I chuckled. My dad chuckled. And then we both turned around and walked away. About 4 hours later, he made a call because his wheel almost fell off. He took that advice to heart. I thought that was kind of a universal joke that everybody could get and understand.
You got to be careful with that, man.
No, he did 3 ugga-uggas and left.
Oh, that is unfortunate. That is very unfortunate.
Well, for him, it was. To this day, it's one of my crowning achievements. It's one of those, drain your radiator so that your car doesn't get too cold in the wintertime and stuff. Like, one of those actually worked on an actual person, more or less. Like, those can really hurt people, and it makes me super happy.
Nothing against the younger generations, but I think we're going to start seeing a whole bunch more of that. Like, I really think the day of the blinker fluid joke is going to come back around. Muffler bearings, I'm pretty sure all of that stuff is going to happen.
In this younger generation's defense, exhaust fluid is a thing now. I remember the first time I saw that, and I was like, is this a joke? Like, are these like gag gifts at Napa? And it's like diesel exhaust fluid. And I'm sitting there looking at the bottle. I'm like, that's kind of funny, but that's like really expensive for a gag gift. Like, shouldn't the bottle just be a bottle of water? And no, then it's a real thing now. But that was, exhaust fluid was a running joke for forever.
Well, it's the same way with muffler bearings. When I first started working at Baxter Auto Parts, there was some customer that came in at some point, and he was one of these jerkwad customers that nobody liked to deal with. And he comes rolling in, and he goes, fresh meat. Go and get me some muffler bearings, boy. And because I'm mouthy, I was like, yes, sir, I'll be right back. And I ran to the back where we have like this wall of vintage auto parts in the main Baxter Auto Part store. And I pulled a package down off of the wall. It's one of those muffler donuts, right, that goes in your expansion joint.
Yeah.
But it said muffler bearing because that's what they used to be called. And so I brought it back up front, threw it down on the counter, and the guy's like, oh, wait a minute.
That'll be $39.95.
So once in a while, you can slip one through.
Yeah. And in this guy's, I shouldn't say defense. I'm not sure what the right word is, but I don't know that I've ever seen this guy not high out of his mind.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So this can't work on all people, but it seems like now that it's getting more and more legal and more common, some of these jokes that should be caught are going just straight overhead, and then somebody's wheel falls off on the highway.
That deaf one, the exhaust fluid, I mean, that one's already gotten people because, I'll have to try to go out and find it now, but there are some photos out there of a fella that put diesel fluid in his deaf tank, thinking that it was just like an auxiliary fuel tank. It was in a brand new Ford F-350 diesel.
Yeah, it was a chick, actually. I know which video you're talking about, and it was like 12 hours old, and the whole exhaust was just glowing red because it's pumping fuel through the DEF system. And she was like ripping on, Charleston Chevrolet or whatever the company was, saying, I just bought this giant dually, and then the internet just pounded her in the ground for putting diesel in her diesel exhaust fluid system.
It was actually kind of interesting reading how she had to get the diesel in. Like, it was like put it in a can, pour the can in where the DEF was because she couldn't get the diesel nozzle in. It was wild hearing the story about how she was able to get diesel in that tank.
Yeah, I'm guessing that it wasn't easy. I'm not sure who goes there. Like, once the nozzle doesn't fit in and isn't even close, I'm not sure how you continue. Especially when it's a brand new vehicle, I feel like it comes with a big stack of manuals and papers on the seat when you buy it. Wouldn't you just pop it open and like Google DEF or, look up in the index?
Here's what happens. A lot of times people think I am much, much smarter than I actually am. And so I don't need Google. I don't need the internet. I don't need to talk to anybody. I know what this is because my brain is telling me that I know what this is. It's a classic overconfidence thing.
See, I'm the opposite of that. If it wasn't for Google, I would be so much dumber because if it wasn't for Google, I wouldn't know how to work on half of the stuff I own. Like, I have a lot of respect for mechanics back in the day because they had a Chilton manual and just straight brain power. I mean, nowadays, anybody can Google anything on working on a vehicle and just pop up a video of somebody walking through how to change, brakes to CV shafts, drop transmissions. Like, I actually get a little frustrated once in a while when I Google something, wanting to know the best way to take a part out or put a part in, and I can't find a video for it, I get a little frustrated. I'm like, what the heck? Like, there's supposed to be a video telling me how to do this. And then everybody's like, oh, you did that yourself? And I was like, oh, yeah, it was easy. But if I have to start without a video, considerably less easy.
Exactly. I'm going to get you a patch for your jacket that says YouTube Certified Mechanic.
Oh, exactly. That's straight where I'm at if it wasn't for YouTube.
Well, that's a perfect segue for me, because one of my favorite things to do is to get drunk and watch YouTube videos. And if I had my choice right now for probably the cheapest thing on my list of things that I didn't get, the ryegrass whiskey that Chris Beatty's making over at Spiritopia.
Oh, really? I haven't tried that yet.
It's a brand new thing. He had to get it through the FDA. He's the first person to ever do it. It's not rye whiskey. It is ryegrass whiskey. And it is incredible. He only bottled, I think, 12 cases of it. That's it. It was a very limited run to begin with anyways. So very hard to get your hands on. But I would love to get another bottle of that. Hopefully he makes another batch. But, you know, it's going to have to sit in a barrel for a while. And, yeah, it's just going to be a while. So that's a little bit of an impossible dream for me. But
you know what would be hilarious is, now that this is through the FDA, if the grass industry here, for people who don't know, in the Oregon and the Valley, I think that the grass, like 95% of the world's grass seed comes from here. Like that's kind of our main thing out here, is growing grass seed. And it's not grass like in your lawn. I mean, that's what it's for, but it ends up being these big fields of tall grass that they get the seed off of. If this whiskey is good enough, and with a whiskey shortage, grass prices could really increase worldwide if the Valley starts pumping a bunch of their product into making whiskey.
It's so true. It's so true.
That would be hilarious and awesome.
It's a few years away, but, you know, maybe we can be looking back on that. You know, 10 years from now, we'll be doing a show talking about how, hey, do you remember when that one guy made the ryegrass whiskey for the very first time?
Yeah. And I'll be like, I talked about buying stock in all these grass companies, and now it's all doubled and tripled and quadrupled, and I'd be rich, better than Apple stock.
That reminds me, I really should talk to him about sponsoring a barrel.
Sponsoring a barrel?
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, you put your name on it?
Well, I don't know. You know, give him a little bit of money. See if 3 or 4 other people would go in on a barrel with me. So if he's making a barrel, yeah, it won't be ready for 3 years, but theoretically, since you paid up front, I mean, maybe there could be a little bit of a deal going, you know. I don't know. It's just something to think about.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's like a CD of whiskey. Like, you pay this, you put this much into it now, but in 3 years, you have this much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Certified deposit. Gotcha.
Oh, yeah, not a music CD.
Yeah, no. CD, yeah. CD at the bank.
Fortunately, any of our listeners that are under 20 years old are not going to know what a CD is anyway.
They're not going to know what either CD is, to be fair.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
So you go to the bank, you give them several $1,000s, and then you're not allowed to spend it. And at the end of 3 years, you get several $1,000s plus 26 more dollars.
I'm old enough to remember when CDs would return like 12%.
Yeah. I remember when I got old enough to think about buying, everybody's like, hey, you need to do something with your money, put it in a CD. And I went down, was like, ooh, and 1 year CD, and I'm looking at it. I start doing the math, I had a couple grand, like, I'm going to make like $38. What am I doing with that? Like, ooh.
Makes sense when you think about it, because if you ever asked if you could take your money out of the CD early, and they were like, oh, you're going to lose so much. I mean, we're going to have to take like 50% of your dividends. And then you go, well, how much is that? And they go, $12. Okay, well, just give me my money then.
Yeah. Interest rates for my generation, not, putting your money in a bank is hardly even worth it. It's just basically safe from fire then. Like, that's the only difference. At your house, there's a fire and you had it on the shoebox. A thief could find it, or your house could burn down. If you take it to the bank, it's safe from that, and you get it, 12 cents a year.
But we're not doing it that way anymore. I mean, everything's electronic, so you don't really have to worry about it. Heck, if this house burned down, it'd actually be a blessing.
Oh, yeah, insurance.
Yeah, go on, take the money and run.
Yeah. So now when Andy's house burns down in a week, the arson investigation is going to pull this podcast up. So you said that old oil furnace caught it on fire, huh?
That's natural gas, but you're not going to trick me there.
Exhibit B. Listen to this.
Yeah. No, we like this place. Hopefully it doesn't burn down. Plus, I mean, well, I don't want to lose all my podcasting gear, man.
So, no joke, if my house caught on fire, I have a private bridge that I'm in the process of getting engineered and certified. But right now it's not. So as I understand it, the fire department will drive up to my bridge and watch my house burn down.
Perfect.
Yeah, no. Literally, they said that, like, well, you need to get that certified, in case, something happens. So I was like, well, what if something happens? They're like, well, we won't go across the bridge. I'm like, so if my house is on fire, you'll stop at the bridge, quarter mile away from my house? And they said, yeah. And I was like, well, there's like Dorfler fields, big grass fields around me, and maybe you could just like drive across one of those. And I'm like, oh no, not going to do that. We're going to watch from the bridge. They would take an ambulance across it. That's small enough, but anything with 2 axles, they just scoffed at me.
That is really interesting. It's like, hey, by the way, I really appreciate you paying all this in tax, but if you don't pay some more, then no can do, buddy.
Well, I'm sure they'd come up on foot and watch it burn down from a safe distance, but the trucks are all staying on the gravel road out front.
Well, I mean, they already brought all these marshmallows and hot dogs. They got to do something with them.
Yeah, I'm sure there would be a lot of laughing and merrymaking while I scream about all my stuff. But once again, I'm insured, so
Exhibit C.
Yeah. See, I can get away with it even easier.
Hey, going back to finance, though, so last week's episode, which actually Coy hasn't listened to yet because we're doing these a little bit early since the Christmas holiday is here, but we're going to be listening to Chad Alexander from the local bar. That's his podcast. And we had a lengthy discussion about all different kinds of booze. And we talked a little bit about the merits of storing wine and storing like Scotch whiskey. And the buying and selling of those bottles can actually make you quite a bit of money. And a good place to put your money right now, if you have a place to store it, obviously. Like you need an area that's not going to be wildly variable in temperature and humidity. But if you have a place to store it, that is not a bad way to go. Guns, booze, and cars, collector cars, are some of the best places to put your money right now because they're appreciating the most.
I can definitely see that. My only worry about storing alcohol is like an investment for your retirement, especially here in the Northwest. Have this little thing that everybody keeps talking about called the Cascadia Fault Line. That's, 100 miles offshore. I think it was supposed to go 100 years ago or something. The average, we're like 100 years overdue for a massive, massive earthquake. So I've always kind of hoped that was going to happen any time now so I can enjoy the chaos while I still have some youth. But I'm assuming it's going to happen when I have diabetes, have lost a leg maybe, I'm bound to a wheelchair.
Your eyesight for sure is gone.
Yeah, it's going to be worst case scenario for me. Like they're not coming to save me. They're going to triage me down in the lost cause area. And when my basement full of booze, that's my retirement, that's the only thing keeping my dialysis payments and stuff running, that's all just going to explode to just a delicious party cup on the floor.
Once again, it's a good thing you're insured. Exhibit D.
You can insure bottles of booze. I guess, yeah, it makes sense that you would be able to.
Oh, yeah, because it's a collectible. It's just like insuring a collector car. As long as you're disclosing it on your insurance, then she's covered.
I can just see me going through and they're like, okay, so this one no, I drank that one. No, that was not on there anymore. And then the 1945. No, well, there was like half a bottle of that. I'm guessing that half of that was left, about like 12 fluid ounces still. I mean, it was opened, but there's still some left, so I'm not sure the value on an opened bottle. But and they're just going down the list. I'm like, well, that one was open, but I took almost none. I just took a little taste. I just stuck my finger in there to taste it, but then I sealed it back. I poured some wax on it. We go down the list. Pretty soon, I just have like $14 worth of booze.
Well, hey, that's the way it happens sometimes. And again, you mentioned the Northwest. It is cold and it is rainy here. And sometimes you really just get in one of those moods where you're like, we're opening a bottle of booze. What's the one that we have in the pantry? Oh, it's this 1948 one. Guess it's getting drank. Yeah,
no, I agree. Sometimes you got to sit down, get on Netflix, just black yourself out and watch the entire season of Grey's Anatomy.
Ooh, you know what you could do, though, to keep a good track for the insurance of the booze that you have? you could use the Smooth Mobile. It is a stabilizer, camera stabilizer, that is meant for phones, right?
Yeah, you were just showing that to me. It's a gimbal that's powerful enough to run a GoPro or a phone, right?
That is number 2 on my list of things that I did not receive, but I wish I had. The thing that I like about the Smooth Mobile is that it can turn into a native camera position and you still have your stabilization. All the other stabilizers out there right now, they're meant for the phone to go in landscape view, right? Which is great, except that if you're trying to do like an Instagram live video or a Facebook live video, they want to be in the native phone position. The Smooth Mobile is the only stabilizer out there right now that allows you to stabilize your phone in that upright position.
I also liked that it had the built-in extension rods. It's not like you have to twist and add something like some of these. You just pull on it, and it wasn't real long, but foot and a half, whatever it was.
And it still keeps all your controls right at your fingertips on that.
That was pretty slick on that. I like that.
The stabilization from the videos doesn't look like it's absolutely the best, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I think that my Smooth 4 that I use with my phone, not real often, but once in a while when you're going to events and stuff, I'll bring it with me. That seemed like it had a little better stabilization, in my opinion, just watching the videos. But again, who can really tell without putting it in your hands? But at $160, it seems like it's a relative bargain considering all of the functions that it has available to it.
No, considering the functions versus how well it performs, I think probably a bargain in that price point. Speaking of other things I was wishing to get for Christmas, Gorilla Grills. I don't know if you're familiar with them. I just stumbled across them on a Facebook post. It had analyzed me and decided that I liked grills and hadn't liked this page. So I hopped on and started looking. And they make a really interesting grill. It looks a little R2-D2-ish, but has an interesting look. Like maybe you should plant a flower in it or something. But it has some unique features. It's a pellet grill. And I can't remember the exact model number.
It's just the basic Grilla.
Yeah,
it's
the Grilla. That's it, the original Grilla. And it's got like a Popular Mechanics Editor's Choice Award or something. The lid, instead of folding up, swings to the side. It's supposed to retain heat better. And I think it's $700-800, but it's really sweet. And I really wish I would have got one for Christmas.
It's really funny that you're bringing it up because I've talked about that Gorilla Grill on the show a few different times. And a couple of Pardon My Fork episodes ago, when we were talking to Kevin Sandridge from Barbecue Beat, he was actually talking about the Gorilla Grill because he has one of those. And he is absolutely in love with the thing.
Well, maybe Gorilla Grill's listening to this. And they can realize how badly I wanted this for Christmas. I've been such a good boy. Such a good boy. And they can send me one and I will review it really hard.
You will review the daylights out of it.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I'm going to review that thing for days. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm never going to send it back.
One of our favorite reps over there, Shane Draper, real good dude. He let me know that that's not something that Grilla does because, I've been down this whole path before of, come on, Shane, I've been a good boy. What am I going to get for Christmas? And that's not something that they do, but you know what? The quality of those Gorilla Grills is so high. I think I'm just going to need to get one, pay full price for it. And it looks like it's the kind of grill that is going to last a lifetime anyways. So I think at $7.99, that thing is still an absolute bargain.
I'm sure it is. There's a little part of me that hopes it doesn't last a lifetime, I kind of want it to fail like 5 or 6 years so I get a different grill, just upgrade to the newest. So if it, you got to kind of be picky. It could be too good.
That's a good point. That's a real good point. I mean, is there any reason why you couldn't just pretend that there was some problem with it and then, Craigslist it?
Well, it's kind of when you're trying to explain to your wife how this grill's you just want a new one. There's nothing wrong with this one. It's like when you want new tires, but you're maybe 50% down with the ones you have. She's like, what's wrong with the ones you have? And I'm like, they're 9 months old. And then she's like, shouldn't they last a little longer than that? Yeah, they should. But, and then you do this weird circle. I get better performance out of new ones. She's like, well, how much better? Like almost none, but there's a new model out that could get more performance, but they're twice as much. And then you get in this big standoff. So then you have to just go out, do a standing burnout, and then rotate your tires and do it again. Be like, oh no, they're below 0.2. It's illegal.
Well, that's what I've been doing with my tires. So yeah, it works.
You started doing standing burnouts like 12 and a half minutes after you rolled out of the tire store, though.
I think you mean dealership.
Yeah, you've been aggressively assaulting your tires since they were new.
And you know what? This is totally off topic, but I am just going to throw that out there. Everybody knows that I have an EcoBoost truck because I talk about it all the time. But I was on one of the EcoBoost forums, and I don't know why it just blew my mind, but one of the guys with the new 2.7 liters, not the 3.5, but the 2.7 with the 10-speed transmission, took it to the drag strip and ran a 13.8. No mods. No mods. He put it in 4 high, did a little brake boost on the line, didn't even put it in sport mode, just traction control off so that he could brake boost it. Brake boosted it, light turned green, he just floored it all the way, 13.8 at 100 miles an hour.
It kind of makes me sad because I remember when 13.8 was like fast for a car.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
Like
Real
when
fast for a car.
when I was into cars, I mean, shouldn't say, when I was younger and into cars, and, you know, it was kind of Honda Civics and Nissan Sentras and all this stuff, 14 seconds was like where you had to get to be considered a fast car or fast-ish. Like below that, you weren't fast yet. You start getting into 14 seconds and 13s and you had a quick car. Anything below 13, people were like, wow, that's a really fast car. And then there was just like a couple guys in like DSMs and some of the all-wheel drive cars that were into the 11s, and they were like putting cages in, and you're like, yeah, daddy's money or, you know, insurance payout. Like it was so far out of your reach to get into the 11s, especially if you're running front-wheel drives then. Like you had to do insane stuff. And now a factory Ford F-150 can pull off a 13.8.
It's mind-boggling.
Without a V8.
And we talked about this exact thing that you're talking about. I talked about with JP Alonso on the Edge Autosport episode. And yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, when we were kids, a factory 15-second car was fast.
For years it was that way. I mean, I remember when I got my S2000 and I took it out and I went to, I want to say Portland drag strip, and I ran a 14.2 or it was low 14s. And I was stock. I had tires, stickier tires, but that was it. But pretty much completely stock. And that's about what the factory rates them at. And I had a little stickier tire, so I was able to run the factory rating, being I wasn't a professional driver. And I went to work, and they were all kind of making fun of it because, you know, it's this Miata-looking car and a bunch of man's men out there. And they said, what did it run? And I was like, 14.1. And they're like, oh. Well, that's what SS Camaro ran back. You know, that's all their kind of iconic cars. Like, that's what they ran stock. And it was like, well, that's fast. And like all these men that were just like seconds ago making fun of it, then we're like, oh, that's pretty quick. And they all kind of shut up. And I was like, you know, and now I'm looking back and I'm like, that is so slow. Like S2000s are slow. Like the new Civic turbocharged, I don't even know what it runs. I guarantee it's faster than that stock.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure it's a low 13 or something.
And again, talking about the Civic, when I was talking with JP, they bought one as a shop car for Edge Autosport. So be looking out there for some products coming for that car. But yeah, he talked about how you don't have to do anything to it to turn up the boost. It's literally just a plug-in tuner, and you can crank the boost up just like any of these other direct injection motors that we're working on right now. I
mean, there's going to be some really awesome motor swaps going on. Some of these newer cars are so quick. Those motors have got to start getting just bolted in to some of the older cars that weigh less once some of these start hitting junkyards and getting wrecked out and stuff. There's going to be some cool stuff. I mean, you're going to see Nissan 240s with EcoBoost in them soon.
Oh, yeah, I have no doubt. The only downside to the EcoBoost V6s is how wide they are. They look like a Subaru motor. I mean, they're just so wide because they're 90 degree, and then they've got that super tall dual overhead cam head on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's no reason that even the EcoBoost 4-cylinders don't end up in some of this stuff.
No, that's true. That's true. And, like JP was talking about, the basic architecture of those EcoBoost 4-cylinders is the same as the Mazda Speed 4-cylinders that were in the Mazda Speed 3s and Mazda Speed 6s when they first came out in 2003, 4, 5, whatever that was. And so that's becoming a tried and true platform.
Yeah. And especially with now, like the trucks and stuff, having a rear-wheel drive version of that instead of just a front-wheel drive version, they're going to start getting put in some of these smaller rear-wheel drive sports cars. They just have to. It's just a matter of time.
I'm dying to do like an EcoBoost Ranger, an older, like a late 90s Ranger. I think that would be a ton of fun.
For sure. I'm really looking forward to see what this new Supra comes out with. I know it's supposed to have a BMW engine, which I was a little disappointed with, but then now there's talk about not a BMW engine. So, and I think they're scheduling that for kind of a 2020, 2021 release.
Something like that.
And they've been teasing it for so many years that who knows, but
there's a new video of it out where you can hear the engine sounds. Have you watched that yet?
Yeah, but it's the BMW engine, right?
I don't know if it's the BMW engine.
See, I don't know how much information's out, because originally they said it was going to be a BMW engine in it, which BMW isn't exactly known for making a ton of horsepower on stock internals like the old 2Js were. So I was hoping they would kind of go somewhere more along the lines like the old 2Js. But
nah, come on. Those days are over. You know that.
They are and they aren't. I mean, a lot of these Subarus, stuff like that, are making crazy power. And EcoBoost again. There's guys making crazy power out of these stock, just turning up the boost.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I don't think we're gone from those days. I mean, we're never going to have that inline six craze like we had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice to see some of that crazy power coming out of stock internals again.
And the Subarus, it's interesting you bring that up, because now that I've talked to a couple of different shops that deal with Subarus, I'm finding out that the reason why those 2.5s seem to eat themselves is because of the ring gap. The ring gap is not wide enough. And so when that motor gets hot, the ring gap closes completely and it starts to bind in the cylinder and it breaks those pistons. And so now, surprisingly, there are people who are just taking apart the stock EJ 25s or 257s, whatever they are. I'm not a Subaru guy, sorry folks, but they're taking them apart, they're gapping those rings, they're putting it all back together, and they're putting down 500 horse on those stock internals.
So how much oil are they burning now?
Oh, copious amounts. Yeah, huge amounts.
25 miles a gallon, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The new FA architecture engines, the FA20s that are in the new WRXs, and they're also in the FRS and the BRZ. Those are supposed to be an absolutely fantastic motor. For whatever reason, they don't burn nearly as much oil. They have much better fuel economy. Everything is just much tighter on the inside. And there are guys that are putting down, 400, 450 horsepower onto those without doing anything to them.
Yeah, and, the oil burning thing, at least for me, it's not, it's kind of something to snicker about and rib the Subaru guys about, but pretty much at least the late 2000s and early 2000s, all of those high-performance motors burned oil. Mm-hmm. I mean, S2000s, the F20s and F22s, they all burned oil. If you're just driving them around, they wouldn't, but if you're running those up to the 8,000 or 9,000 RPM redline, you're getting some blow-by, like they burned oil. And most of the Type Rs and everything else, they would have blow-by. They burned oil, nobody really cared, but all the high-performance engines of that era burned oil. Mm-hmm. But it was always if you're running them hard, and I think Subaru's problem is burning oil when you weren't running it hard. So even the guy who just bought it, drove it around, didn't know about cars, would end up being a quart low and then get in trouble because he's burning oil just daily driving it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fortunately with the Hondas, if you were low on oil, it took a long time being low on oil before you'd spin a rod bearing or something. First you'd get the lifter tick, and then VTEC would stop kicking in because those early VTEC motors were hydraulically actuated.
Yep, I've been there.
yeah.
And then I've never been there, but I've known guys. Eventually, if you ran it hard enough and long enough, the low oil light came on, which on a Honda, you're like 3 quarts low on a 4 quart. I mean, it was basically at the cusp of rod bearing damage. I mean, I don't know why you have an oil light that comes on after 3/4 of your oil is gone.
Yep.
I feel like 1.5 quart, let's kick a light on. But
well, the old Mazdas were the same way. When that oil light came on, that meant your motor was toast.
Yeah, it stopped right. Like if the oil light comes on, you need to shut it down and coast to a stop.
Exactly.
Clutch in.
Exactly.
Speaking of Toyotas, I read an article that Toyota's looking to bring out a new mid-engine car, possibly a new MR2.
Yeah, I read that too. Some of the concept art's been pretty interesting looking.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the concept art. I'll put that out there. It was odd. It reminded me of those that last generation of Eclipse.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not what I'm looking for in an MR2 for sure.
Maybe I'm too much of an 80s baby because those spaceship looking, harkening back to the 80s type of cars, I kind of dig it.
Yeah, the old, I don't know if boxy, kind of stealth fighter look, just sharp angles where there sometimes shouldn't even be sharp angles.
Mm-hmm.
got the slope on the back, but then the straight back up and down rear windshield. Yeah, pop-up headlights. They could do something retro to those old MR2s that could look really good, on a new body. I would like it if they'd keep it real small again.
For sure. Something like a Lotus Elise.
Which I don't know if that's going to cut into the BRZ FRS sales, but I feel like they'll have to go a step up in power and performance to not eat into that market while staying below the super market.
Yeah, I totally agree. But something, even if they just kind of went back to their roots, if you could do like a 22 or 2,300 pound car and give it 230 horsepower.
Yeah. No, that'd be a great car.
Oh, yeah.
I would drool all over it.
That 10-to-1 power to weight ratio is just kind of a perfect blend for a driver's car. If you make a capable chassis and it handles well, like that's the makings of something good.
I totally agree. And I don't know if they'd use a Subaru motor in that, but I mean, if you're doing a rear engine or mid engine with that low center of gravity motor, could be a pretty crazy car.
I totally agree.
Speaking of MR2s, I think everybody knows I'm a little bit of an MR2 fan. Never owned one, but I like them.
Well, your wife had that yellow 3rd gen.
Yeah, she had the Spider, which I'd like to get one someday. But while we're also talking about what we wish we'd have gotten for Christmas, I've been looking at used Lotus Elise.
Oh, really?
Which, they got MR2 motors and stuff, basically. They're kind of loosely based on Toyota stuff. The price on those is really coming down. Like, it's actually getting to where me fantasizing about owning one is it's within reach if I made some bad financial decisions and went and bought one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not wildly out there. I'm seeing quite a few of them for high 20s to mid 20s, low mileage, and you got to drive. They're not a lot where I live, but you get out Texas, California, there is a lot of those for a good price.
And the motors in those are basically just the 2ZZGE, right? But they have like a Lotus head or something?
No, I don't. I think they actually still say Toyota on the head. They have a different oil filter that holds a little bit more oil, but they're virtually the same. I believe the Extige was a stroker version. I want to say one of the models they stroked it out, but
and supercharged it. I know the Exige was supercharged.
Yeah, there was a supercharger they made for it, but it's for all concerns, it's the same motor. Mm-hmm. So you can buy up most of your parts just from Toyota.
That's really cool. And for like $25,000, huh?
I've seen some in the low 20s, but
you had one that you sent me as like an example, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. There's quite a few you're seeing. Like, here's one 27.9. It's in Florida. Where's the mileage on that?
It's yellow. I like that. It's got 35,000 miles on it.
Yeah, I think this one has 35,000 miles.
Wow.
It's basically a new car still. It's a 2006? 2005 with a touring package, yellow, just beautiful car. It looks brand new. $27,000.
That's really impressive. And then I think I saw one, in the 25 range earlier, but it had like 70,000 miles on it.
Yeah, which, that's not out of this world for your average car guy. I mean, if you had to pick between getting this and a lightly used WRX or STI, I should say, it's, that's a tough choice. I might go with this. If I'm not buying it as a daily driver,
mm-hmm.
I don't see I can go wrong with this, as this could be considered somewhat of an investment.
Mm-hmm. I agree, because I do think that they're going to start gaining in value.
And they're dropping in value now, but the Extige is already going up in value.
Mm-hmm.
So these are dropping now, but they're only going to go up at some point, or at least stop dropping, I should say.
Well, the nice thing about these is if you want to start autocross racing or track day racing, you don't have to do a thing to it. Just change the oil.
Change the oil, keep good tires on it, and you got a car you can drive to the track, drive to the autocross, that looks cool and is considered an exotic. And as far as like maintenance on exotic cars, it's maintenance on a Toyota 4-cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you get in a wreck in this, I think you're probably going to die. I mean, these things are 1,500 pounds, 1,600 pounds?
No, they're like 2,100 pounds, but still.
No, they're look it up. I'm pretty sure they're like 1,600 pounds. They're really light, because that's their main advantage over the MR2 is they have several hundred pounds of weight. No, 2,000 pounds. So,
oh yeah, 2,000, right on.
So they're 150, 200 pounds lighter. I thought it was more than that, but
I think the thing that I like about this too, especially if it is just strictly a Toyota engine. Yeah, what did we say? 2ZZ?
2ZZG.
Yeah. So the thing I like about that is that is not a fantastically uncommon engine. And so if you wanted to like put a Toyota turbocharging kit on this, one that was meant for an MR2.
Oh, Monkey Wrench Racing probably, they make the MR2 turbocharging kits, and I'm sure they would have the answer for you. They're $3,000.
Oh my gosh.
Now the ECU on these, I don't know if that's a Lotus thing or a Toyota. The Monkey Wrench Racing usually runs like a Mega Squirt setup, and I don't know if that would work on this, but there's enough of these Elise that are track cars that I guarantee somebody's got it worked out.
I mean, it really sounds like if a person had $30,000 and a place to park the car and some wrenches, they'd be able to have a 300 horsepower Elise pretty easily.
Oh, yeah. I have no doubt. No doubt at all.
That's pretty wild, dude. That's pretty wild. I actually went a little bit more conservative for my sky's the limit end-all be-all present that I didn't get. I went with a 2012 Mercedes S550. These things, you want to talk about reduced in price. When they were brand new, $140,000 car. Nowadays, $20,000 to $25,000.
And you know, it has a real presidential limousine look. You roll up, everybody's going to think you're rich. They're probably going to try and sue you immediately, but that's a great-looking car.
Listen, man, 500 foot-pounds of torque to the rear tire, twin-turbo V8. It's going to have the sound. It's going to have the comfort. It's going to have the luxury.
Like, this is the kind of car you want if you're stealing several hundred pounds of, like, raw gold, bars. You're going to be able to haul the weight.
So 5 gold bars. Got it.
Well, yeah, I'll have to work that out, work out exactly where we're at. I'm just saying, was it gold bullion? Just a sack of gold sack would probably rip out the bottom, but a crate of gold nuggets.
The pallet.
I don't know if you're going to put a pallet in this.
Yeah, you'd need the wagon.
If you're going to steal like 2 Rubbermaid totes of gold nuggets, like you're going to run from the cops, it's going to handle the weight. I mean, twin turbo. You're going to look pretty villainous,
That's what I'm talking about, man. Now, the maintenance on this is probably going to be quite a bit more expensive than the Elise. That's definitely the advantage of the Elise, because something like this, it's a Mercedes, man. Anything goes wrong, it's going to be a complicated system, and it's going to be very expensive.
That's true. And I don't know what these weigh. They're not light. I mean, look at that interior. That took a small herd of cows to make what's going on in there. I mean, it's beautiful and it's nice, but this thing's got to weigh. It's got to be pushing 5,000-6,000 pounds, right?
Oh, easily has to be. But again, 500 horse, 500 foot-pounds of torque. That's going to be hard to beat. I mean, look at the headrest on just the driver's side. It contours to your head.
Yeah, they put a headrest in and then put another headrest on top of it.
That contours, yes.
Yeah, that contours around your head. Not for like a racing type bolstering situation, just for like a neck massage type thing. Brembo, does it have Brembo brakes? It has drilled and slotted rotors for sure.
It does, but that's actually just because when you're daily driving the thing, you need to be hard on the brakes just to get it to stop.
Because it's so...
Yeah, because
so
it's
incredibly
8,000
heavy.
pounds, yeah.
You know what's nice about something like this? Like if it's a windy and like semi-trucks are blowing over and stuff, you get out in some of the middle states, bread states, this thing's just going to track straight down the road.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The thing that I love about this is when people start talking about how heavy the Dodge Hellcat is, Mercedes is just like, hold my beer.
We got this.
Uh-huh. You ain't seen nothing yet. But look at the legroom in the back.
That's, like I said, it's a small grove of trees and a medium-sized herd of cows to make the interior of this car.
It's got screens on the backs of the headrest.
Just the instrument display looks like, I don't know if it's holographic, but it looks like it should be on a small craft, like a small aircraft.
Holographic? This is pornographic.
It's getting there. V8, yeah.
Intercooled V8 twin turbo? Yes. Hey, you were talking about how much you like the EcoBoost. This is the precursor to the EcoBoost, right?
It really is, in a more luxurious fashion.
I love all the walnut trim, too.
Yeah, like I said, a small grove of trees. LCD display. You know what I love about these newer cars all going with the LCD display? I feel like it's a mistake.
Really?
Well, because as a prior S2000 owner that had like the original, like alarm clock version of an LCD display. And why I got it was 5 or 6 years old, it still looked pretty amazing, like it was high-tech looking. Have you got in and fired up an S2000 in the last year or two?
No, I'm guessing it looks a lot like when they tried to do it in the 80s.
You look at it and you're like, the speedometer is still that LCD 8 like your old alarm clocks used to have, and the tack is this, it's actually little hash marks. It looks so ancient. Like it's cool because it looks retro. Like it's weird. And it wasn't long ago when I sat in one of those, it was like, wow, all cars are going to be like this soon, Mm-hmm. And so all these LCD displays, they're just technology's moving so fast, they look so ancient immediately.
That reminds me a lot of the Lexus LFA. It's got that all digital.
Yeah, that amazing, last Starship dashboard going on.
Mm-hmm. And they needed it because the engine revs so fast that a mechanical tack couldn't keep up with it.
I wish these manufacturers kind of stay with that analog look, because you never go back in 7 years later and go, what's going on here? This looks horrible.
Right, exactly. You never go back into it and say, again, why does this look like an alarm clock from 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing to me when I got back into an S2000 and was just tinkering around the other day, how old that gauge cluster looked. Like, it looked so old, it looked retro. I was like, well, that's cool, it's so old. I'm like, wait, this is 2003. It's like 15 years old.
Yeah, it's not from that long ago, but man, it is weird how antiquated that stuff gets.
Yeah, so, and just think about your phone. 3 years go by, you're looking at it and it looks old. The screen looks like it doesn't have very good clarity all of a sudden. When 3 years ago it was amazing. I wish they'd go, I think it would be a smart move on most of these manufacturers' parts to keep a more analog style gauge cluster.
I agree. Man, that is food for thought and knowledge for life, my friend. You're dropping bombs today.
Truth bombs, getting preachy.
I, for one, am very glad to have Coy and Masterson back in the studio. So thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
And of course, you can find Coy and everything he's doing at Overlandia Podcast on Instagram. Still working out the details there, but that's going to be coming around real soon. And of course, you can find us at boostboozbbq.com. The Facebook and the Instagram are at boostboozbbq. Go and check those out. We got tons of cool stuff going on all the time. And especially now, just more and more ramping it up as we head into the 2019 year. So, Coy, once again, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much for telling a friend, and we will see you next time. Boost, Booze, and Barbecue.